Hello, everybody. I see that folks are already chiming in about where they're from on the group chat. It looks like we've got Toronto, Canada, Paris, France, Minneapolis, Minnesota, Vancouver, BC, Sydney, Australia, Boulder, Colorado, Hartford, Connecticut already chimed in. This is fantastic. I'm actually sitting in London, England, and I'm at a small hotel called the Rookery, which is fabulous. If you ever come to London, definitely check out the Rookery. They don't have room numbers. They've got names on their rooms. It's a lot of fun. But I was led here because I've experienced mobile development through the lens of the last 15 years, and it's just become so interesting and apparent that there's a real shift taking place. Very happy that O'Reilly kind of understood what the vision was and allowed me to come on and share my thoughts with you today. And really, that's what they are. These are my thoughts. These are my ideas, and it's through the experiences that I've had recently. And I look at this as an opportunity to present these ideas to you. They're not scientific research or any kind of field studies yet. These are my experiences, and I would love to know what your experiences are as well, and hopefully shed some light onto what I think is a really exciting opportunity for the mobile developer. So in slide number 2, there's a webcast description. I won't read it for you, but essentially what's happened is I've had a number of really compelling experiences through my own development efforts and then through other folks I've talked to where mobile developers are finding themselves sitting in boardrooms of major Fortune 50 companies and sharing their experiences with regards to apps and app stores and business models, et cetera, and playing a really integral role into the strategic direction of a lot of companies. You think about publishing companies, media companies, entertainment companies, major properties, and small companies as well. So suddenly, the mobile developer has really kind of started playing a really integral role into business at a level that, quite frankly, has never been seen, specifically with regards to the mobile developer. So I encourage you to read the description and kind of get a sense of what it is we're going to be talking about today. So a little bit about me before we move on. Again, my name is Pete Erickson. I live in D.C. I moved to D.C. from Seattle 4 years ago. Seattle was a part of 3 different startups that all touched mobile technology. Picture IQ, Coco Communications, and Vitessa Corporation. Today I'm the founder of Disruptathon and MoDev. And MoDev is a group organization that focuses on the success of the mobile developer. We're a 1,500-member organization based in Washington, D.C. Also a father of one 11-month-old with a baby on the way. They're going to be 14 months apart, so my life is very busy. And to keep things sane, I'm also an oyster farmer. So I leave the fast-paced world of technology, and I'm a gentleman oyster farmer. I don't do it as a profession, but I love growing oysters, and the farm is on a small body of water at the south end of Puget Sound called Totten Inlet. And Totten became famous in 2008 because an oyster from Totten Inlet won the Worldwide Oyster Tasting Contest. And that's when I decided that it was time for me to jump in and make our little family summer home into an oyster farm, and that's been great fun for me. If you want to follow me on Twitter, @Disruptathon is my primary handle. @Pete Erickson's my personal handle, or Pete at Disruptathon. I'm also on LinkedIn. Would love to connect with you guys wherever you are in the world. I'm organizing a mobile developers conference in 2 weeks called MoDev East. It's going to be at USA Today headquarters, which is also the headquarters for Gannett. They've got a fabulous conference center there. So December 2nd is going to be a full-day conference, and December 3rd is going to be a really fun hackathon, and we've got fabulous prizes happening. So if you're in the region or want to come to D.C., would love to have you there. I've pushed out a discount code for folks on the call tonight, O'Reilly20, which is a 20% discount on the event. So a little bit about me, and now I would like to know about you. We're going to start the webcast with a poll question so that we can understand what who our audience is. And the poll question is, what best describes your current occupation? Are you a mobile developer? Are you a mobile designer? Are you a mobile marketer, or in some other capacity interested in this subject? So let's let this poll run for a second and then take a look at who we have on this call. So I'm going to go to the poll results. I'm going to push this out. This is happening very quickly. It's very nice. So let's see here. So we have, right now we're 50% mobile developers, 9% designers, 9% mobile marketers, and 31% others. Sounds like I needed to maybe put a few more categories in there. So in the chat section, definitely if you're one of the others, let me know what you do so we can speak to your occupation as well. So it looks like we've got about half mobile developers. Fabulous. So how do I define role? Because role is something with regards to mobile development you could take in a lot of different directions. So you can talk about folks that are, you can talk about role from a standpoint of technology. Our developer is going to take on the role of being Android focused or iOS focused or some other platform focused. Or you can talk about it in terms of team, and that's the role. That's how I'm going to define role today in today's discussion. So what's the functional role of the mobile developer relative to organizations or relative to industry as a whole? And I think that that's really fascinating. The technical elements, obviously, there's a lot of different roles within the mobile developer ecosystem. You do have back-end developers, and you've got front-end developers, and you certainly have designer developers, and then you've got UX designers, and the ecosystem is quite broad. But overall, if you take all of them together, that's what we're going to talk about today. So we're kind of talking about a broad brush stroke of the mobile developer and how they fit into society. So it looks like somebody chimed in as a front-end UI developer. Would say that, and then this is all for discussion as well, but kind of see that as designer. But we've got advertising agency producer on the line, beginner web developer. So yes, another thing that I've seen is a lot of folks making the move from web development into mobile development. For the new members that join the MoDev DC group, and we get about 50 to 75 members a month joining, a preponderance of folks are just making the move into mobile, mostly from web. But then you've got a lot of .NET and traditional Java developers coming in as well. So what's really happened and what kind of has led to this shift? And it really can, look at probably the biggest inflection point is in 2008 with the iTunes Store, and I show the chains breaking because really that's the most symbolic image I could come up with regards to what's happened. Developers, got the shackles taken off, if you will, and were able to, suddenly have a totally new platform upon which to be creative and explore business opportunities. It was really amazing to me that it was about this time that I was looking for mobile developers to help me with the concepts around Disruptathon, and I went to go look for mobile developers, and they were hard to find. It was very difficult to find out where they were, which is what led me to start MoDev DC. And within a week of launching MoDev DC, I had 17 developers join the group. And today, here 3 years later, we've got 1,500 active members, and we do two meetups a month with well in excess of 100 RSVPs per meetup. And there are many, many hundreds of similar meetups now across the country. So the mobile developer has been deshackled from the back office and has now come to the forefront. And if you go into any city, you're going to be able to find groups of mobile developers and be able to find them very easily. So just in a few years, we've gone from very difficult to find to there are a lot of outlets now to find where developers are. So that's one element. The other element of this is what I like to think of as like the hyper creativity and the hyper innovation that's happened since the iTunes Store was there, and subsequently the other marketplaces, the Android marketplace and Ovi and BlackBerry and Microsoft. There are so many outlets now for the developer to actually be creative and come up with business solutions. that it's really changed the marketplace dramatically. So we're going to push out another poll question here to kind of take us down the path here as we talk about this. And that poll question is, of the developers in the audience, of the 50% out there, how many were developing mobile apps prior to 2008? And how many have started developing mobile apps after 2008? And this question is something I was looking forward to seeing the answer to. So developers, please chime in on this, and let's see what the results are. So right now we're at 37.5% of developers were developing prior to 2008, and 62% have started developing after 2008. And this is that's not a surprising number, but it is interesting to look at the growth there and the shift. I'll go back and look at those numbers in a little bit. So since 2008, my experience with mobile developers is that they've gone out and they've pioneered the mobile app space. They made all the mistakes and also seized on the opportunities. There's many well-documented apps out there. We don't need to get into names, but people that did very well early on. But there are tens of thousands, if not more, developers who have gone out and cut their teeth on this new market and learned things that you can't learn unless you go do it. And that's led to this kind of value shift and role shift for the mobile developer. So I just put up a few words that I believe describe the mobile developer today. Independent, pioneer, craftsman, experimenter, knowledgeable, entrepreneurial, and vulnerable. And the last word, vulnerable, I put up there because I'm intimately familiar with with several of the patent troll cases and have been personally affected by the one from Lodsys. And there are a lot of reasons why mobile developers are vulnerable, but they're vulnerable definitely to patent trolls, but then to a lot of other folks as well. There have been so many cases of mobile developers going into contracts with folks who had the next amazing app idea, and but and maybe positioned that they had some money, but they really didn't. So mobile developers doing a lot of work and not getting paid for it, and going through the experiences of contracts and contract law, which is also really important. But so these are the few of the words that I put up. I would love to have folks chime in and tell me about some of the words that come to mind for you when you think about the mobile developer. So a lot of firsts for the mobile developer. So in the next slide, we'll just talk about some of the first. So they were the first to develop apps in like the iTunes App Store. I guess you think about. Well, let me just go on here. So first to develop apps, first to test models, so business models, paid versus ads, and what the threshold was for people downloading apps on the consumer side. The first to experiment with multi-platform strategies where you're managing one app across multiple platforms, Android, iOS, BlackBerry, Windows, etc. First to overcome many of the hurdles that were presented. The first to fail, which is really important, and the first to know the possibilities. And again, these are ideas I came up with. I would love to know some of your ideas. So let me look at some of the questions that are coming in here. Josh says he was a Palm Pilot app developer in 2001 and then took a 9-year hiatus. I think that's really interesting because certainly you had the initial wave of feature phones that supported email and camera phones that supported images. And there was a wave of mobile development that happened in and around 99, 2000, 2001. And a lot of those folks, that wave then stopped that growth. That wave continued until 2008 when the iTunes App Store launched, and that started off the whole flood. Good to have you on the call, Josh. So let's see here. Anybody work with CDPD back in the day? Yeah. So I think that's what's interesting is talking about packet technologies and routing. That's the difference, and we'll look at that here in a little bit. But developers used to have to understand routing and packets and network architecture and device level architecture and stacks, and all that stuff has changed now. We'll get into that in a little bit. But let's see here, over the next several years, how do you see the economics of mobile apps development shifting? Well, it's a great question, and I see the economy. Actually the question shifting is very good, because the initial wave of apps obviously led to a new economy in apps from a business to consumer side. But I think the economics in mobile applications will shift from being, obviously being consumer focused, but to being business focused and information focused. So the shift will really be a growth. So right now there's tremendous value that's been created in the download of apps. It's very well publicized, how many billions of dollars that the iTunes App Store is generating through mobile apps. But I think what's interesting is the growth in the business sector and the B2B opportunities for apps and app development, and then the ecosystem around apps is going to continue to be a huge area of growth. But I've also heard some interesting feedback from developers on business models. A number of developers regret actually paid apps. They may have achieved really, really great results and sold millions or tens of millions of apps as 99-cent apps. The challenge is you've lost that customer once you get that 99 cents, which is actually 69 cents. And mobile advertising is actually a really strong area of growth for mobile developers that are doing consumer-based apps, or media companies that are pushing out media-based apps. That mobile advertising is going to be a pretty strong long-term strategy. So about that boardroom that I mentioned in my description of this webcast, and talked a little bit about, all the ideas that we talked about thus far are really what's landed a number of these developers in the boardroom. And I've heard many firsthand accounts of, like I said, Fortune 50 companies or Fortune 500 companies, where the mobile developer and the mobile development team is sitting in the CEO's office, working on the iPad strategy, or working on platform strategies, and discussing models and things that have worked. So, for the first time, I would say, with maybe a few exceptions here and there, but for the first time, the mobile developers found themselves in a very strategic position. In my meetings today in London, I was sharing with some folks this webcast, and every one of them had similar experiences where their mobile development teams have played a very critical role in their overall strategy. So any mobile developers out there, please chime in on the chat. Let me know your testimonials on finding yourselves in a strategic type of session that maybe you've never found yourself in before. So I thought I would kind of position this a little bit with a diagram, and that's this human brain. Always wanted to do a brain image, but this is sort of the shift from the left to the right, and kind of getting back to that CDP question. Let's see, there is some motion in here, and I'm not sure it's going to, let's see here. Okay, there we go. Great. So in the 90s, mobile developers really had to focus on the most binary aspects of development, at the device level, at the lowest levels of the OSI 7-layer model of the network stack. And a lot of you that have been a part of mobile development prior to 2008, or prior actually to probably to 2003, understand what I mean when I get into the OSI 7-layer model and understanding the requirements for apps operating on networks. But the developers back in the 90s had to understand everything. They had to get really deep into the device level, and it was a tricky affair, and it kept developers obviously in the at their computers for hours on end, and no time to get into the more fun aspects of mobile development that we have today. So then in the next decade, mobile developers started to move to the right. So as phones and feature phones developed more application support, the creativity started to set in, and mobile developers got to develop imaging applications and games and things that just were not possible before with the devices. And then in this decade, what we're seeing is a massive shift to the right. So the mobile developer plays a much greater role in all of the creative aspects of mobile development. And this is just going to continue this path. And there's a lot of, there's been a number of books that talk about, right brain thinking, and Dan Pink has a book about right brain thinkers, why right brain thinkers will rule the world. And basically it gets down to when there's a commodity and commoditization, the only way to grow then is through the lens of creativity, design, and user experience, because that's your differentiator. And that is that I think kind of nails hits the nail on the head. Excuse me. It's the time shift. Trust me. Just got here yesterday, and that shift I think kind of is the perfect example. This diagram is kind of the perfect example of what's happening. And so for you developers out there, I've got another poll question for you, or actually other folks as well. How many of you have experienced this shift firsthand? So where you were I guess it would help if I push this out. You were developing before, working on back ends and at network layer type development, but now you find yourself almost exclusively focusing on the front end, the user experience, the design, the business model, all of the other things that come into mobile development. Look at some results here. All right, no results yet. I wonder if that means folks haven't experienced this shift yet. So I'll come back and push that out as soon as we have some data. But so how does this fit within an organization? So if I'm a developer and I'm in an organization, where have I traditionally sat, and where am I sitting now? So I did a diagram here that shows basically organizations from a standpoint of budget authority on the left on the vertical axis and customer contact on the horizontal axis. So at the bottom, you've got low budget authority. At the top, you've got high budget authority. On the left, you've got low customer contact. On the right, you've got high customer contact. And the roles are developers typically sit in the lower left quadrant, accounting is at the upper left, marketing is at the upper right, and sales is at the right. And this isn't always true for every organization, but it's pretty much kind of representative of the way things go. Accountants, they count, the finance department counts the money, but they don't have a lot of customer contact. The sales department, they're supposed to get the money, but they don't have a lot of budget authority, but they've got massive amounts of customer contact. The marketing department oversees the expenditures of budgets, and they tend to have quite a bit of customer contact. But what's happened is, oops, go up here.
Hi, Peter. We're just pushing out that poll. It looks like folks were not able to answer it. So, folks, if you're seeing that poll, please go ahead and answer it, and Peter will get your results shortly. Back to you, Peter.
Okay. Thanks, Yasmina. Sorry that you weren't able to see that poll. Look forward to seeing some data here. Okay. So on to my slide here, organizational slide. So here's what's happened. So you've got your developers, you've got your salespeople and your accounting people and your marketing people. So the developer has shifted into a role where they're touching finance and accounting through their knowledge of business models that have worked online in the app stores. They're touching marketing through what's most successful from a marketing standpoint. They're touching sales from a sales standpoint. And this is true at the edge, at the app level, but it's also true at the company level. A quote I remember from this past week when I was talking to a CEO of a development shop in Washington, D.C., said, "I don't sell. I only talk about what I'm passionate about, and that's how I do it." And so, developers have found themselves, in all of these roles. And a lot of these developers have actually, left and started their own companies. So maybe they've gone from being a .NET developer to learning iOS to launching their own, mobile apps development shop, and now they're managing the entire process of an organization from budget to marketing to sales. And I think that kind of represents a unique shift. And I hope you enjoyed my images there. Thank you, Google. All right, so 70% of our developers have experienced this shift, or our folks on this call have experienced this shift firsthand. 30% have yet to experience this shift. But perhaps, one of the outcomes of this, and I'll push this poll answers out. Let me see here. Oh, can't push that out. I won't be pushing that poll answers out. But I think, with the awareness and kind of talking about this, perhaps you may look for opportunities to sort of take advantage of this shift. Because what I've seen, and I've seen it firsthand, is mobile developers who have been able to kind of capitalize on this in this shift area are doing extremely well, whether they have decided to start their own enterprises or they work for an organization and have kind of taken on this new role of a strategic asset within an organization. So we're going to go to poll number 4, and kind of based on let's see here. There it is. There's poll number 4. How many mobile developers have pursued non-technical training outside of mobile development? So that's either design, business, or other. And Yasmina, are people seeing this poll?
Yes, we can all see it.
Okay, great. Excellent. Let me go over here. So I'm looking at some questions here. So somebody said, definitely experienced the shift. I'm officially a designer and developer on my project now, so I'm about 50-50. I think that's interesting, is a lot of mobile developers have become designers, and a lot of designers have become mobile developers. And that just represents the convergence. Here's another question come in from Kate. Kate says, how many developers do you estimate develop per platform, iOS, Android, Windows, etc., worldwide, and how many do multi-platform? What, in your opinion, is the most promising platform for developers? Well, that's a great question, and I guess I'll probably answer it like a politician. I think it really depends on what you want to do as a developer and what your goals are. I think focusing on one platform is a great idea, but I also think understanding multi-platform strategies is also a great idea. There are many successful iOS shops right now, but the reality is you've got to be a successful mobile shop and hitting the other platforms, Android and Windows, and others as well, I think, to serve a customer base fully, because not everybody's going to be on iOS. Obviously, since iOS was first to market, there's probably initially more iOS developers, but with Android now and the ubiquity of Android, that's definitely probably there are as many Android developers as iOS developers. And with WinPhone coming on very strong and their partnership with Nokia, there's going to be a lot of Windows Phone developers coming on the scene here in 2012, definitely. So let's see here. Another question from Geraldo. I have an IT background, but move into business space, strategy, marketing, etc. I try to keep current so I can have both points of view. I think that's also important. It's it's not enough now just to be a mobile developer. And I think that's a important part of this call. So how many mobile developers have pursued non-technical training, i.e. design, business, or other? We're over half, so 52% of the developers who've answered this survey have pursued some other kind of training, and that also is a pretty compelling and interesting number, and I think very cool and very smart of the folks that have, and those that haven't. I think it's obviously, I mean, it's equally important that you stay great at what it is you're doing. This shift isn't for everybody, but it definitely is an opportunity for the right folks. So some other thoughts that I came up with regards to talking about the days of yesteryear and the realities of today. Yesterday it was all about languages with development. Today it's more about toolkits. So there are so many toolkits coming on the market. You hear a lot about PhoneGap and Sencha and others, but it seems like every month there's a new toolkit being announced that helps developers. And so these enabling tools are, I think, very important for developers to stay abreast of and to be good at. What's the top toolkit today may not be the top toolkit a year from now, depending on what happens and depending on what devices are out there. Yesterday we talked about device level a lot. And understanding devices was hugely important. It still is important, but today we talk about design level and what's happening at the app level with design. Yesterday, developers were largely hidden. You didn't really, mobile developers, you didn't see them a lot. And as with my testimonial, I had a hard time finding them. Today, they're showcased. So great mobile developers are getting out there. They're definitely a part of every aspect of the business cycle, as well as seeking out speaking engagements and being on the forefront of the industry. Yesterday there were founders and CTOs, and today mobile developers are founders and CEOs, which I think is pretty interesting. There was always been great founders, technology founders that were CEOs, but not necessarily mobile developers that were CEOs. So pretty interesting shift there. So where does this lead? And if I'm a mobile developer, where does the future lie? And that's what I really wanted to share. Is I think developers can own this new role and be aware of it and understand it, and start to put it to use, and be an expert at something in addition to code. Code is hugely important, and writing good code is still hugely important, and there are so many examples of poor code going into apps. It doesn't change the fact that we need to have great code and discipline in developing that code. But having a skill in addition to code in mobile, I think, is really important. So design and UX will continue to dominate the mobile landscape, and I would definitely encourage understanding the principles of design, or understanding UX, and teaming up with awesome UX and design folks would be huge for any mobile developer. I've seen so many apps that I thought had great ideas that had all the makings of a great app, but they were very poorly designed. That is a big growth area for mobile, and that's true on the consumer side. It's as true on the enterprise side as well. That outstanding user experience is going to win the day all the time. Probably 90+% of the time, it's going to win over even an app that doesn't have nearly the features, or maybe not developed as purely. Tinker, I would say keep tinkering. One of the things that led to this shift is that mobile developers just jumped right in and did. So they went and released apps. They went and experimented with business models. And when there's a new platform launched with a new app store, so in this case the platform du jour is probably the Kindle Fire. Definitely, if you can get on that platform, early and learn, that becomes an accelerator for your career. Becomes something that you know that very few people know. And those are inflection points for you to get that job that you want, or potentially launch that company, co-found a company with folks. You name it. These new opportunities come along, and I would definitely jump on them. I've watched it time and time again. I've watched developers make a run at a new platform and become the expert on that platform, and for a couple of months there's an inflection window to really launch your career. And don't be afraid to fail. I think that's probably one of the biggest barriers for a lot of folks is, there are, there are millions of apps in app stores now, and there are probably, only a couple 100,000 of all those that are, decent apps and still maybe chugging along and making money or continuing on. But failure is huge. Failure is absolutely a critical part of the mobile developers world now. And what's nice is you can fail fast in mobile. So you can have a concept and get it built and get some version of that concept up and running in a very short period of time. And you can test through these failures. I think one of the interesting things I'm seeing now is also on the investment side. So and we didn't get into investment here, but I'm watching a lot of investments happen in mobile. And 8 years ago, an investment in a mobile strategy was a $500,000 to $1 million initial round because you had so much work to do to get there. Today, investors are investing $25,000 to $50,000 in a number of different app strategies and mobile companies because you can fail faster. Instead of a $500,000 investment and a 2-year window to see if you're successful, you can make a $50,000 investment, and in 6 months you'll know enough information on whether or not you should proceed forward, or you'll have a bit better information. So failing fast is a part of this world, and don't be afraid to fail. It's a badge of honor to fail, because what it means is you went out there and did it, and that's going to always do you well. So let's push out our last poll today, and would love to know if this conversation has changed how you think about the role of the mobile developer. And have I been able to shift your thinking? Let's see here if we've got some data coming in. So 20% right now say yes, and 60% say sort of, and 20% say not really. So I'd say that interesting results. I maybe have some more work to do, but sort of I'll take sort of as definitely good. And looks like the yeses are starting to come on a little stronger now, up to 23%. And let me look at the group chat here. So would love to get some more questions going here. I'm waiting for my group chat window to pop up. All right, so I agree. Going forward is the idea. Learn new languages and experiment in more platforms. That's from Sergio Barrera. Thank you, Sergio. Couldn't agree with you more. Gerardo has a question. Gerardo has a question. Do you think a smart mobile strategy would be to focus on one single platform, et cetera, like the iPhone, and base on your success, start moving to one other bigger platform? Absolutely. So if you've got an idea for an app or a mobile strategy, I think starting with one platform is a great idea. Test the water with one platform before going to multiple platforms. Absolutely. And I've seen time and time again folks try to pursue a multi-platform strategy and fail at that strategy where, I think they would have been best off to pursue a single platform. How do you see the balance shifting from standalone to integrated for business, consumer versus enterprise? Well, apps absolutely. So initially, the movement was, every company wanted to have an app. Get us an app was the cry from a lot of those boardrooms. But an integrated solution now is absolutely where this is going. So that it's if you look back at the internet and the .com era, you can see that a very similar thing happened. People had to have a website, but then companies figured out how to make a website strategic to their operation, and the same thing is happening with mobile. So a lot of initial apps are going away. They're becoming integrated into a business's brand, into their overall strategy, into their enterprise operations. So there are apps now that are only visible to the workforce. And apps are going to be the integrated component of a company's operations. Apps will also be more integrated on the consumer side, so they'll be integrated with everything it is that we're doing. So the social media that we experience and the content we consume will all be integrated into apps in one way or another. What's the best strategy? Teresa asks, what's the best strategy for finding, preparing for a job in mobile space if your background is in other traditional dev spaces? Well, that's also a great question. Definitely pursue training, and there are so many outfits now that are offering mobile training. It's hard to distinguish the good from the bad, but I think a starting point would be great, and see if you like it. So maybe find a mobile dev boot camp, attend a conference that offers training courses, and get started. The on-ramp to mobile development is fairly short, but then I would caution that it's like anything else. You can get into mobile fairly quickly, but you can't be great at mobile very quickly. So don't expect that you're going to be a knock-of-dead mobile developer out of the gate. You're going to have to spend a lot of time, honing your craft. And, I think mobile development many times has gotten a bad rap because there are so many first-time developers out there doing things that, quite frankly, are exercising very poor development practices and giving development a bad name. But, Teresa, you've got a background in mobile, in traditional development. So all the disciplines that are part of traditional development are part of mobile development as well. So you have a discipline path, and I think that sets you up nicely for a beneficial future. I would also recommend, like with iOS, go online and take the Stanford courses. They're freely available, and they're outstanding. So let's see here. Are the VCs bringing business assistance or just money? Today, I would say venture is largely bringing money. This is such a new area. The mobile app space is very new. There are no experts. I hate to put it that way, but it's really true. I don't sit here and speak as an expert. I sit here and speak based on my experiences thus far. A year from now, I may have a different perspective based on more experience. So you've got folks that are more experienced than others, but even people that have already developed a successful mobile company based on apps and even exited those companies, I know of several examples. Let's say you developed a new app, mobile strategy, were successful in getting traction really quick, and Facebook came along and bought you. And that happened a year ago. Well, today you are no longer an expert because of that. That doesn't make you an expert. So, and venture capitalists work very hard to have folks, as part of their teams that are experts in the fields that they're investing in. But today, I would say there are no experts, quote unquote. There are only folks with more experience. So if you're going to pursue venture money, I would just say that look for venture money that does have some level of mobile experience in their portfolio. But I would also say that there are a lot of new investors in the market that are targeting mobile specifically and making investments that reflect the difference in the mobile world. So they're going to invest smaller amounts of money, $25 to $200,000 initially, as opposed to a traditional seed round, 5 years ago for a startup that would have been $250 to $1.5 million. So there's a new breed of investor in this mobile space as well, and I would recommend finding that kind of new breed investor and working with them. That might do you better. So looks like that's our last question, unless I'm missing anything. If anybody has any more questions, we'd love to take them. Otherwise, I want to thank you for your time today and for joining me. And I look forward to the next webcast. Thank you very much, O'Reilly.